More now on Hillary Clinton's new advertising blitz. Will it be enough to win over skeptical voters? Our next guest investigated Hillary Clinton for years as the Whitewater Independent Counsel. Bob Ray joins us now in a Fox Business exclusive. Great to have you here. So, the Washington Times out with a piece, by the way, it came out at midnight. Calls mount for Hillary Clinton criminal investigation amid email data breach fears. Will she be charged with anything criminally?
Well, the first question is whether she'll even be investigated. That's a difficult.
Correct. DOJ.
That's a difficult issue for the Department of Justice during a presidential campaign. She's an announced candidate. Criminal investigations and politics don't mix particularly well, as past experience has shown. It is difficult to conduct an investigation that is not seen as having an angle or a bias or some improper impact on the political process.
How come politics get in the way of the law? She either broke the law or she didn't.
Well, it's easy to say that, but it's difficult actually when in practice to conduct an investigation, particularly in the middle of a presidential campaign. And most people think that it is better left to the political process to sort out whether or not she's worthy of the office, as opposed to an unelected prosecutor deciding whether or not she should be charged with a crime.
So based on your knowledge of the matter, did she break the law?
Well, I mean, I think it's an interesting question. Look, being slippery with the truth or being truth challenged is not in and of itself a crime, unless it's to a member of law enforcement. Whether somebody mishandled classified information and did so knowingly is arguably something that should be looked at as a matter of investigation, but it's difficult to prove. So, I don't know that we have enough facts to actually make a determination as to whether that happens.
Well, and if the DOJ doesn't dig into this, voters will certainly be the ultimate determiner of where Hillary goes from here.
Yeah, since the Justice Department operates at the direction of President Obama and the White House, and particularly if Joe Biden really decides to step in and make a run, it would be nearly unthinkable that the Justice Department would really do a serious criminal investigation.
Well, it would be hard to do, and I think in that process you might have calls for the Attorney General with regard to that investigation, if there were to be one, to be, to step aside and for a special counsel to be appointed. But, it's a long way from that, and it's very difficult to imagine how that investigation really reaches any productive result in the middle of a presidential campaign. Again, I think, most people believe, not just professional prosecutors, but most people believe that in the heat of battle of a presidential campaign, it's better to let the voters sort out whether or not the person is worthy of the office.
Right, to Sandra's point.
Right.
Yeah.
You argued that you said you could argue that she broke the law similar to Petraeus. The mishandling of information that we saw with Petraeus resulted in sentencing of 2 years probation and a $100,000 fine.
Right.
If she was found guilty of these acts, what would her penalty look like?
Well, as I recall, the Petraeus case, that was a misdemeanor resolution of, potentially really even more serious allegations. And of course, in his circumstance, he didn't really have the ability, at least in the public domain, to fight back. Clearly, she does. And if she were to be the subject of a criminal investigation, she'd have a fairly credible argument that I'm only being investigated because people are trying to do me damage in the political process. Look, I don't know what, a potential sentence would look like. We're a long way away from that. We're not even to the point of deciding whether or not an investigation is appropriate. Yeah. If an investigation were appropriate, who would conduct it? And if it were conducted, would it lead to criminal charges? And if there were criminal charges, what would they be? Criminal investigations, even the most simple ones, tend to take a year to 18 months to do. Yeah. What does a year to 18 months look like? Right at the point at which there's a presidential election.
It looks like inauguration.
It looks like inauguration day. So, what would you really be accomplishing if you were to conduct an 18-month investigation here?
Did it surprise you when all of this was revealed? I mean, when you look at...
No.
Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, I've had a fairly long history looking at, what happened to billing records from the Rose Law Firm, and they disappear for a while and all of a sudden materialize. What about Hillary Clinton's statements during the travel office investigation, and did she tell the truth? I mean, look, the reason the poll numbers reflect that people have come to the conclusion that she's not honest and trustworthy, or at least a majority of Americans have come to that conclusion, is not without foundation. So, there you go.
Point taken. All right, Robert Ray, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you this morning. All right.